Joe Orth and I are starting a podcast. What should we call it?
Hey, don't pick on me. You know why? Because this is why. Let's see what he says.
The Joe Show?
Give Joe the business?
That's right. Cup of Joe.
Cup of Joe.
What is happening here?
Would you listen?
We'll give you a chance.
Thank you. That's Joe.
That's got to be Rooster.
And this is the Together We Shall podcast. What's going on, man?
Another day, man. We were chatting earlier before we went live, and you're like, oh, man, he's got no hair on his face. So it usually means two things for me. And being in winter, it's not one of them. So I got drill duty coming up in a couple days. So I figured hack it off now and save some time going forward. But not much, man. Living the dream. Busy work, life, organizational stuff. That's it. You?
I'm good, but it begs the question, like, what does that mean when you say I have drill coming up? Like,
you get a tangent right away. So for those of you that if you didn't listen to episode 1, in episode 1 we talked about how I'm a United States Marine reservist. So the 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year type of thing, that's coming up for me in a few days, one of my weekends. So shave, get a little bit more of a haircut because I'm not in the air wing, and then I drive an hour up to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and fulfill my weekend obligations. That's what
well, thank you for your service, Gunnery Sergeant.
Likewise, sir.
I'm good, bro. I'll be honest with you, knee deep into Ainsley's Angels of America audit. So as you're aware, man, we do a third party audit. We got Handy and company in here. They want to count, ink pens and tell me, to send this receipt and that invoice and counting Freedom Chair. It's, it's a lot, but it's awesome though, because having another entity come in here and like ensure our utmost transparency and purity in terms of just how we execute. So yeah, that's where my attention's been, man. It's pretty well.
I should probably know this, but since I moved down to Wilmington a few years ago, I haven't been to Handy's office. Do they still have that like TV like in the winter that they make a fire?
It's the craziest thing. Like we'll go for like a November meeting and we'll come into the conference room and they have this TV up and it's a fireplace and you really think, because suddenly after about 30 minutes you're actually hot and you
feel
right? Turn the fireplace off. And they're like, dude, it's a TV screen. Anyway, yeah, it's still there, man. It's still there. It's good. Those guys, man, they've been great to work with. But anyway, enough about that. I'm stoked. We have a very special guest today, right? Huh? What's that about?
Man, our first guest, and we decided to start coming up with our list of guests. She was our first list, at the top of our list for our first guest. So episode 2, here she is. But I think it makes sense for you to tell everyone who she is.
She is Briley Rossiter, my firstborn child. An absolute great human that I've enjoyed watching grow from, little bitty girl in my arms to this full-blown woman of independence and of strength. And we wanted to have her on because she's been with our journey since the beginning. In fact, Joe, I've known her longer than I've known you. How about that?
That would make sense.
Yeah, it would make sense. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Briley's coming off mute and telling us all hello. Hi, Briley.
Hi.
We're so excited to have you here. Like, this is great. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us.
Absolutely.
Why are you episode 2? Who are you? Where are you at? Like, tell us what's going on here.
Yeah, so right now I'm in Madison, Wisconsin, which is where I go to school at University of Wisconsin-Madison. I'm a junior currently. And I'm Ainsley's sister. And I've had a lot of roles in Ainsley's Angels, from obviously being Ainsley's sister onto running with Ainsley, and then having an opportunity to write a book about my experiences with Ainsley, Born an Angel. We're going to definitely get into that later. And then being vice president of digital media, where I was making these Spotlight Saturday videos every Saturday for how many episodes, Dad? Like 200 episodes or something like that. And And then going into leaving for college and then now being ambassador in Madison. So that's kind of like the overview of the roles I've had in Ainsley's Angels. And I've learned a lot through those different experiences, like about Ainsley's Angels and also just about myself and about life. And I'm excited to share that and talk about that and talk about it with you guys who have played a huge role in that journey.
That's beautiful.
Let's start the journey then. Like,
Yeah.
Where do we want to begin? So like, you're the older sister, right? So do you want to start like you and Ainsley, childhood, toddlers?
Yeah, so I'm 2 years older than Ainsley. And so, I mean, a lot of like the early childhood, which is, for people who maybe don't know much about Ainsley and the nature of her dystrophy, is that it was kind of progressive. So when she was born, we didn't know that anything was different about Ainsley. And I don't have very many memories of that time when she had more abilities to, use her body. And most of my memories, as like I was kind of reflecting before this podcast, and most of my memories with Ainsley are once we started running. Like that's definitely a big, a new chapter, I guess you could say. But like I talk about in Born an Angel, like before running, Ainsley and I were just sisters. And Dad, you probably have more memories of this than I do, but doing tea parties or doing, Ainsley coming in my room and ruining all of the things I had delicately placed in my dollhouse, like those kinds of classic sibling memories, which I don't have very many of, but I've heard stories and seen pictures.
Well, do you remember Make-A-Wish sending us to Disney?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like actually that's a good that you brought that up, because that is probably some of my strongest or most like solid memories of Ainsley before running, which is when we got to go to Disney World, give kids the world through Make-A-Wish. And yeah, so I mean there's tons of really good memories of that time, but I think like at a certain point, going to these races, being in the race day atmosphere, like I was young at that time when Ainsley started running. I'm not sure how old, but that was exciting. Like seeing the race day, like Miss Peggy, who is going to be on an episode at some point. I remember for like the rock and roll half marathon, going and having breakfast at her house. And like, it was really exciting seeing the race day environment. And I think then at a certain point, like Ainsley and running really became one and the same. Like Ainsley loved running and I loved Ainsley. And so I wanted a way to connect with her, and I never was a runner or did sports at all. So I really from the beginning ran for Ainsley and ran for that environment that I wanted to be part of with her. So yeah, that's step one, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's beautifully explained. I've actually never heard you articulate it that way as you replied to, Ainsley loved running and you loved Ainsley, and so A plus B equals C. So no, that's really pretty.
And that's
just for this,
that's really how it was. Like the first race that Ainsley and I did in Massachusetts, like I remember seeing with Dick and Rick Hoyt, for those who don't know, Ainsley and I got to cross the finish line in step with the legends who made this all possible, as Born an Angel would say. And like I remember that whole weekend, like that was not the equivalent of like if I had been doing travel soccer and now we're at the big game. Like this was not like a running event for me. This was like, in looking back, it symbolizes the birth almost of a new phase of my relationship with Ainsley, which maybe I didn't quite realize at the time. I think that's kind of a theme as I was like reflecting on different things, is like I never know, it's so hard to grasp the full magnitude of different things that have happened in my life, like in the moment. And even like in the beginning when I was explaining all these different things that I've done with Ainsley's Angels, it's kind of surreal sometimes thinking about that.
Yeah, it is pretty surreal. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was a lot of things though, but like you mentioned, a new theme. It's kind of like a new chapter to an extent in your life, and I definitely can relate a lot to that. But I think what's really neat is how you talked about even So if it would have been 2008, you would have been like 7 or so, right?
Mhm.
I know that's the first time I guess, met and saw you. You know, these cute
Yeah.
big glasses, and but you mentioned going, to Peggy, who Ainsley's therapist at the time, and then again she'll be on. But like how that atmosphere was, the energy of that was high, and I think
Yeah.
that's what brings a lot of our, friends yesterday or strangers today, friends today, family, tomorrow type of thing together is that atmosphere. I know for me, like I'll take that atmosphere more than I'll take the actual running.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily the fun part, but it's everything leading up to whatever distance and then the memories of the distance, but then again, like afterwards too, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's something that folks across our organization can definitely relate to, is the energy of race day or weekends away in Massachusetts, DC, Louisiana, et cetera, et cetera.
It's more than a running organization.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And we've said that for years, that energy is what we try to harness and just try to portray. And it's that energy that creates these exceptional experiences, not just for the riders, it's the runners. Gosh, Briley, you were not a runner when you experienced this environment, right? You were drawn to it. You wanted to run. Granted, it was your sister, but like from 2008, watching her until you were 9. So for 2 years, you watched her run, and then you don't remember this. Maybe you do, but you were like, Dad, I want to do this with sister. I want to do with what you are doing, and they started to train for it. And you talked about crossing the finish line with Dick and Rick, and as a father, like I was beyond overjoyed, like the feelings. And mom, she was cheering. Camden was there, and it was just the energy of you all crossing. It was like, wow, this is really powerful. Just the whole experience, and that's really where it started making us realize, we got to share this with more people. Like this needs to be far and wide. This needs to be a standard in every environment. And so, thank you for your part in helping us realize the power of this experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe at many steps along the way, I've maybe been I mean, we've said that I've been Ainsley's voice in different ways. So I definitely think I maybe have been a player in making some of that stuff happen. But like you described, the energy, it is so much greater than any individual's actions. And that's what it comes down to, is that
And yeah, and you said being her voice, like that's what you went on to do. Like that moment of crossing the finish line led to you all running 20 or 30 races together. But in the background, like you're a talented communicator, and you're starting to jot down. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get into that because I just now, as you were saying that, had this kind of connection where I'm thinking like I was not a runner before I ran with Ainsley. And like you said, maybe I was good at writing and that kind of thing, but I was a shy kid. I was not the person behind the microphone before Ainsley, like I turned into this public speaker, doing book readings, because of Ainsley and because of Born an Angel. And I mean, Born an Angel changed my life 100%. Like the experiences that came from that, like for those who maybe don't know, like we got invited to do a lot of different book readings and news interviews. I mean, I was doing book readings for all audiences. I was doing book readings for kids, little kids, first grade class, to the whole school in the auditorium, to my 6th grade class, my peers, to a group of 50 adults for the Noble Women meeting, like to all the public librarians in Virginia Beach, like just really diverse audiences. And that kind of forced me to fill that role, which I would never have done, I think, otherwise.
Yeah. It was awesome to watch. And as you just talked through, like all the people that you were in front of sharing Ainsley's story, your story with Ainsley, Kendra, for example, like we met Kendra at this Noble Woman meeting, and she's there. And do you remember that? Do you remember meeting Kendra, or not really?
I mean, I definitely remember that event. I feel like I remember every book reading because they were so like big. Do you remember the first time that I ever had to do any sort of public speaking related to Born an Angel? And it was at the Team Hoyt Virginia Beach, who Ainsley was running with Team Hoyt in that time. And I had an opportunity at one of their, I believe it was like the sort of like a family dinner before the big rock and roll weekend. And they had everybody was there, you know, and they're giving people awards for fundraising and all this cool event. And I had a chance, right, if I remember correctly, to speak and let people know that I was having my book come out, and I was very scared. Like,
yeah, no, you were. I do remember that because when we left the house and we were headed to that dinner, we talked, you and I did, in great detail about like just taking a deep breath. You know, the tenets of public speaking really is just it's just you and I in the room. You know, I'll be over here. You can look at me the whole time if you want. You can look through the audience. And it was wild because like as an intelligence professional in the Marine Corps, teaching youngsters, college students, young Marines, you know, how to communicate publicly, it was the same tactic. So it never really mattered whether you're 80 years old or 8 years old. It's the same ideas. It's just about just relaxing. And we talked through it. And there was one point where you were like, I'm not going. And like you were there, right? But once you went and Mr. Trey introduced you, Trey White, you know, the president of Team Hoyt Virginia Beach, you stood up and all eyes were on you, and it just flowed so smoothly. And I think that had to do because you were harnessing the fact that you were just proud to be Ainsley's sister and to be able to advocate for her. That's beautiful.
Go ahead.
I was just say that led to so many more book readings and opportunities, all the things that you'd mentioned. But I said Kendra a minute ago because she was at one of the ones, and Kendra is one of our caregivers. She's Gage's mom, and she came outside after you read that book and said, "Oh my gosh, like I have a son who is blind and is wheelchair bound, and I want him to experience this." And just you never know when someone's listening to what we do and how fast it can lead to just amazing journeys for every person. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and that feeling of nervousness before that first speaking event turned into, you know, like you said, flowing, and that transformed into me really, really loving doing book readings so much. The feeling before a book reading, like I remember that so much, the feeling before you are about to go out on the stage and read the book, and it's like just a rush of excitement, and then the Q&A afterwards where people have a chance to ask questions. And for like little kids, it was like, what's your birthday? I'm 8. and then for older kids, they're asking like, and then this is a little bit of a tangent, but I remember really vividly one of the first book readings I did after Ainsley died. A kid asked, they said, were you sad when your sister died? Or they asked me questions like that, like, you know, these really, it's like, how do you answer this in front of, you know, 50, 10-year-olds? Like, but I'm grateful for those experiences and for those questions.
Yeah, it was almost a healing process. I remember that question happened, and the teachers, like, you could tell they wanted to just say, shh, you know, stop, don't ask that. And you immediately jumped right in with gratitude to say, you know, thank you for asking that. And I remember it, you were like, I don't really know how to answer it, but let me try. And it was really neat to witness that. Another thing that I thought was really neat to witness was, I don't know, a little email that we got one day from a house up in Washington, D.C. What? Pretty wild.
Yeah,
experience.
I mean, do you want to describe really quick kind of how that came to be?
Yeah, so the first lady and the second lady at the time was Michelle Obama and Dr. Joe Biden. They were creating a program where they were attempting to essentially reach out and bring together not only military families but inspirational women into one room and to celebrate kind of their accomplishments and to introduce them to one another so that they could then work together collectively to continue to spread goodness. And we got an email, and you're cordially invited to the White House. The first lady and second lady would love for you to come up, and you know, Briley and Ainsley are guests of, you know, the first lady. And so, whoa, Oh, and guess what? It's Thursday morning, and we got this email on Tuesday night. So like, there's no planning here. It's like go, and we drove up there. My gosh, Briley, yeah. What do you remember about that experience?
Well, I was thinking about this before we talked today, and it's such a surreal experience. Like a lot of my, like I was mentioning earlier, a lot of these experiences have felt really surreal, and I don't think I grasped the full magnitude of what was going on. Like I was like, we're going to the White House, and then next thing I know, we're in the White House, and Michelle Obama is speaking, 10 yards away from me or whatever it was. But one of the strongest memories I have is beforehand we had a chance to meet one-on-one with the then second lady, now first lady, Jill Biden, and she came in and was really kind to us. And I remember she told me, she was like, you've got to be a teacher, you would be such a great teacher, because she's an educator and that's kind of what she does. And I still now am, kind of figuring out what I want to do with my life after college, but teacher has always kind of been like back in the back of my mind. And sometimes I think about that now and think, maybe I should listen to the first lady and all of that. So yeah, but I remember the snacks really fondly. Like they had this deal. It was cool. So
Yes.
yeah.
I mean, she just queued you up, Joe. Do you have she said snacks. Y'all should have seen Joe's face, man. He was like, oh, snacks. Joe's a snack guy. He loves snacks. It's all about snacks.
Hungry too, but
No, it was wonderful. I getting to see you in the same room with Rosalind Carter and Senator Elizabeth Dole, and obviously the first and second lady, like, and then having conversations with each of them, and the poise and the maturity that you demonstrated is a testament really to what you were saying earlier about how you were the shy girl, and then now you became this not public speaker, but confident young person. And a parent, just that's all they really want for their children, right? Is the ability for them to be confident and in their own skin. And that was a powerful.
Well, I mean, poise, or was it terror? I don't know, but yeah, like I appreciate that. And it's still like hearing this story, talking about this, I almost need to pull up the picture to remind me, like, yes, this was real. This really happened. And I don't know. It's just it's cool to reflect on all of that.
And that's the whole. Go ahead.
Okay. Oh,
that's the whole point. The whole point of this podcast is an opportunity to just have conversations and to tell stories, and sometimes along the way, like, we have revelations that we never really had before just by talking through it. So it just reinforces the power of storytelling. So.
My friends like to remind me that I wrote a book. Like I just last night actually was hanging out with some of my friends, and one of them was talking about how he likes to write like short stories and stuff. And someone asked me like, "Oh, Briley, do you like to write stories and stuff?" And someone was quick to interrupt and say, "She's a published author." And I just laughed and I was like, "Oh, come on, yeah."
My name's on Amazon.
Yeah, I mean that, like, the book was in Barnes and Noble. That's what? I remember, Dad, that one time we were like, "Oh, do you want to head by Barnes and Noble today and look at the book that is in Barnes and Noble?" Like, that's just, yeah, it's cool stuff.
And then the store manager said, "Hey, we'd like you to read your book at Barnes and Noble on Sunday from 2 to 4." And like, there's media up and like signs and people coming in, strangers.
Wow.
Yeah, just wild, just cool stuff, man. Really cool stuff. One of the things we do in this podcast is we deep dive sometimes, and that's the beauty of the dance. You never know where it's going to take you, but I'd love to kind of get into this I guess that moment. I'm big on grief and actively grieving, and so Ainsley passed away February 23rd, 2016, and you were a freshman in high school. And so I think there's some folks that have had to deal with grief, and I think all of us do at some point. I think there's some lessons, Briley, that we can take away from your experience. So, you want to talk about this at all?
Yeah, definitely. So like I said in the beginning, like, there's memories of before we ran with Ainsley, very few memories, and then there's memories of after we ran with Ainsley, and I feel kind of the same way about her death. Like, there's memories of before, and then that was such a life-changing moment. And then, there's the things after. So, and when it comes to grief and grieving Ainsley, like, Dad, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this, but I think we started grieving Ainsley long before she died. I mean, her diagnosis was pretty grim, I guess you could say. And so I think, cherished every moment that we had with her, but at the same time, we were kind of, or at least I remember feeling like, I remember when she went to CHKD and was really sick when I was in 5th grade. And I remember like the fear during that time of thinking like, okay, like I think she's gonna die, like while I'm at school, and that's thinking back, I have a lot of sympathy for my past self. Like I, wish I could give her a hug, because that's scary. That's really scary. But I think that like what made it less scary in the moment was you and Mom, and how the way that you handled that, and didn't see like Ainsley's disease as just this horrible, sad loss of her every ability she has and an ultimate loss of her life, but rather like, this is just who Ainsley is. This is Ainsley, and this is what her life is. And like, how can we enjoy this and celebrate this and make her smile as much as possible? So I don't know, it's a really complex, I promise I'm going to let you talk in a second, but a complex like mix of hard stuff, but also joy. And also when she died, that was shocking, but also I had been thinking about it every day of my life for my whole life. So it was, yeah. Do you have anything to kind of say in response to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're right. Like a diagnosis, you grieve a diagnosis. It happens. And then you grieve as you watch the diagnosis play out. And then you grieve when it ultimately, causes end of life. And then there's the active grieving that continues after the end of life. And so I've written before that, like, and this is going to sound weird to folks that may not be able to relate to it, but the happiness of grief. The happiness of grief is what you just described. And many think you can't put those words in the same sentence. Happiness of grief is a thing. And you just described it beautifully. I didn't know, Joe, I told you before, like I didn't know what was I going to do after Ainsley passed? Was I going to, was I going to run anymore? Right. I mean, we talked about that. I mean, the picture on our podcast cover letter. I mean, you remember that, Joe?
Yeah. I mean, we definitely had a few conversations, probably for the year leading up to her passing, kind of knowing, if it was coming, right? And, poor weather, you guys stopped kind of going out of the house, as pneumonia and all those things were more frequent. But yeah, and then that Tuesday, I mean, I remember getting a phone call from you driving back from Quantico, and then the picture on our podcast was 5 days later on a Saturday race in Virginia Beach, and that's, I think, when you really made the decision that morning. I remember like the trailer, we had some balloons and everything, and it was I think you made that decision like, yeah, Ainsley's definitely living on, and we're gonna, to the moon this organization in her honor. And so you laced up the shoes and off we went for a little 5K.
Yeah. The irony of it is you said laced up the shoes. That's right, friends. I did tie my shoes that day, and Joe did not, which is the only reason why I was able to beat him that day. But then again, I don't even know. Did you let me cross ahead of you?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that picture, as I'm looking at it now, that's definitely the final kick. I mean, maybe.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you can see in your stride. I mean, it's a 50-yard dash at that point. So I don't know. And I think kudos to Jen McCormick took this photo as I'm pushing Ashton. But yeah, it looks like you got me by half a wheel. So we'll just you won.
Anyway, now the point I'm bringing up here is that, like, as Briley alluded to, you figuring out a way to go on, and you did that, Briley. You figured out how to do that. And would you like to share some of the process for how you did live on. I mean, I remember the first time that I saw you after she passed away. Like, we're standing in a hallway.
Well, yeah. So yeah, so you had been in Quantico doing something for work when she died, and so I was at school. It was a normal day, and I was in math class, and it was before class had kind of started, and the teacher was like out in the hallway talking to someone, and then she came in and she said, "Hey, Briley, you get your stuff, like it's time to go." And I just felt like instantly like 1,000,000 degrees, like hot, like couldn't see, like couldn't, like shaking, because I 100% knew what had happened, because I had been waiting for that for a long time, so I walked out of the classroom and I turned, and there you are, and you're supposed to be in Quantico, and I think you like reached out to hug me, and I said no. I was like, no, stop, don't touch me. And I think that I didn't want it to be real, of course, that initial like denial, and that it was sort of like the moment when I saw you standing there and I'm having this rush of emotions, and then you touch me, and it's like, it makes it real. It's like, oh no, it's okay. Like, you're comforting me instantly, because you know something that I technically don't know yet. And your action of like comfort, I was like, oh no, this cannot be happening. And that whole day, like, not to get into too much detail, but of course it was like, just, I think I felt every single feeling on that day. And like, when you said happiness in grief, I mean, it would be a lie to not say that I felt relief on that day. That was one of the feelings that I felt, because of, the relief of of Ainsley not having to, be fighting for her life every day, and so I think that in being able to feel every feeling like that was healing for me, and to be surrounded by so much support and surrounded by people who encouraged me to feel all my feelings. I remember the day after, I would say like the whole experience of from when the day she died, the 23rd, for like a week after that, I have a lot of it is a blur, but a lot of it, there's a few like really strong, core memories. And one of them, Dad, is the day after she died. Mimi and Papa, my mom's parents, had come into town, and we were going to pick them up from the airport. I think the whole family kind of, you, me, Mom, and Camden had kind of all done our own things that day. I think Mom was in bed and you were on the phone, and Camden, 10 years old, had decided to go to school. And I was in my room, and I remember I went on a walk in the neighborhood and things like that. But then at some point you asked, hey, do you want to go to the airport with me to pick up Mimi and Papa? And I said yes. And I remember being in the car, and it's like, what do you even feel? Like, what, I don't even know what I was feeling. But I remember that we had been playing shuffle or something, and the song Halo by Beyonce came on. I'm not going to sing it for you guys, so hopefully the listeners know it, and if you don't, I'm sorry. But it's a great song, and you, Dad, like turned it up super loud, and you were just singing, like just letting it out. And you're not a good singer, so it was it was funny, and it was like, I remember laughing, and I distinctly remember like thinking, like having the thought, like, it's okay, it's gonna be okay. And yeah, like, that's all there is to say about that. But yeah,
That's it. Yeah, you allowed yourself, to feel all the feels, and that's the key, and we were laughing, and we were crying, and we were remembering, and we were looking forward, and that's it. Like, that's it all wrapped up, and the support system that we were able to surround ourselves with from diagnosis all the way through that day was critical to how we traveled.
And to tell a story about the support system, another one of these like standout memories that I have from when Ainsley died, the week she died, which almost feels like it deserves a title, like the week, like is just such a, time filled with so many things. But I remember your sister, Christine, Nana is how I call her. She had come in at some point, maybe Thursday night or something like that. She had flown in. A lot of people had flown in. This specific memory stands out because Friday I had decided to go to school. And I got to school. Everyone was kind of like, "Are you sure you're going to school today?" But I was like, "Yeah, I think I need to go to school." And I remember like my first class was art class, and the teacher she's playing music in the background. She plays Tiny Dancer, which if you know our family or if you know Ainsley, that's like my mom's song with Ainsley. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be going home now. Like I've had enough of this. So I called and I was like, okay, I need someone to pick me up. And I think Nana had heard that I was going to be getting picked up. And she was like, of course, like I'm on my way. Like she was like, I'm getting in the truck, and you guys pulled up, and you're not even in the parking lot. You're not even in the like pickup. You like pulled up practically like on the sidewalk in front of the building, and Nana like jumps out, and I just remember her like greeting me as I'm walking and just hugging me so tightly. And then we got back in the truck and we had to go to CVS or something. She's like, I'm getting Twizzlers for your mom. She's just doing, being the wonderful person she is. And that's a random story, but I just remember it with so much love. Nana, if you're listening, I love you so much. And that's just, I think, a really good example of like the little things that kind of contributed to my healing. Like it was going to grief camp and going to piece by piece group grief therapy with my peers, and it was journaling and crying and doing all these things, but it was also Nana pulling up on the sidewalk and giving me a hug and buying Twizzlers. Like it was, all of those little things. And so I don't know if there's any advice in that, but maybe somebody can take something from that. I mean, that's my experience, my story with that.
Do you get any advice in there, Joe? I mean, these are stories you've never heard before.
Keep Twizzlers on hand. Yeah. I mean, I have bits and pieces of some of these, and then some were definitely new. But yeah, I mean, being around, the family during that time, and yeah, seeing the different ways of grief, if you would, across the four of you, was, I think for me, good, because it let me know like that there are different ways to grieve. So whenever that time comes, for me to experience such a high level of it, that knowing, and I think that's what one of the things Briley's trying to say is, right, there's different ways to grieve. And the camp, I remember when you guys did that, right, that was like on the Eastern Shore or something. But yeah, like I think it's important that people understand it's okay to grieve, and there's different ways for everyone to do it, regardless of the situation. I think that's a big takeaway from this, sure.
Yeah, and as you continue to move forward, that's where really Ainsley's Angels as an organization and Briley's participation in that gave her really an outlet to continue to, honor her sister's legacy and be a voice for others. And gosh, Briley,
that's something that like I wrote down some notes, right? Yeah, like there was you both mentioned, right, like your words were your voice, right? And then while writing the book, and then kind of transitioned, if you would, especially at the same time as Ainsley did, to a camera and a microphone being your voice as well, and then editing, right, and Spotlight Saturday, and being able to ask others questions about life and record and document the legacy of Ainsley, across the country. I mean, there's Spotlight Saturday videos and vlogs and everything from literally, from Louisiana to Washington, D.C. and everything in between. So I think that was another way that you were able to find your voice, for lack of better terms, which was neat.
Totally. And that was so cool, the opportunities that I had through Spotlight Saturday, because, there was no one else really making the Spotlight Saturdays at that time, like it was pretty much me, you know, Dad eventually he took it over like afterwards, but a lot of that was, I was making those and I enjoyed it and I felt connected to the organization through that, although sometimes it was kind of a hassle editing. I was like, oh man, like this is harder than I thought it was. This isn't just taking videos. And anyone who ever like submitted videos even for Spotlight probably knows like film horizontally and not vertically, and like all these little pieces, moving pieces with it, which was fun. And I learned a lot. But I think that the best thing that Spotlight Saturday gave me was the opportunity to see the many different sides of Ainsley's Angels and see like, what does an ambassador do and what is it like in this place and at Ragnar and traveling to these big events. Like I have so many fun memories of it. Like it was like, yeah, I was filming Spotlight Saturday, but really I was just being there and being immersed in it. And it was fun, especially Ragnar, being behind the scenes in Ragnar.
So I have a question and a comment based on that. You said filming Spotlight Saturday and doing the editing was really cool. I beg to differ. I think it was actually super. But that's a tangent that's actually in a Spotlight Saturday somewhere.
Yeah. Do you want to? I'll explain it briefly if you don't mind.
Yeah,
I'd love for you to
drink before you explain that, though.
Oh, Miller time, ladies and gentlemen. It's that opportunity for you to just get your favorite beverage. It does not matter what it is. Just grab it, enjoy it, and enjoy Miller time with us. Sometimes when you dig so deep and you get so emotional, you just need a little bit of your favorite beverage. So Miller time. But I do want to make clear, Spotlight Saturday is a 200 plus episode series that can be found on the Ainsley's Angels YouTube channel. Briley was the editor and producer of Spotlight Saturday episodes 1 through 200. And it's on the Ainsley's Angels YouTube channel under the thing called Spotlight Saturday. We would love for you to just deep dive into some of those. So they're really fun. And to that point, Briley said that she found a lot of joy in it. But I can tell you, I don't know any other high school student who spent every one of their Saturdays for 200 consecutive weeks working on film editing and production. So what an accomplishment. So grateful that we were able to document that together. In fact, it was really January, February of 2016 when the very first episode happened. And it was a dad and his daughter saying, hey, we got this idea. And I had no idea where it would go. So I just wanted to, A, say it's Miller time, and B, let everybody who doesn't know what Spotlight Saturday is know. But Briley, go ahead.
So one time when we were filming Spotlight Saturday, it was after Ragnar, and I was filming an interview with Joe, which was first of all rare because Joe does not want to be like, no, I do not want to be on your camera and do an interview right now. Like, but you're a good sport. And so you're like, yes, I'll do this. And then you're talking and it was great. And then you were talking about like what it means to like run this and through Ainsley's legacy. And because I think this was probably not too long after she passed. And somehow at some point you finished it out. You described the experience of like this huge event. You were like, yeah, it's super. And that was so now that's our joke about super.
I remember it too. Like I was like, yeah, it was super. Then I was like, did I just say super? I was like, this. And I don't remember if like that was the end, but in my mind, I felt like it was cut. That's it. I'm going back to the pizza and the beer garden. I've had enough of this.
Yeah, it was definitely that.
Yeah.
But no, that leads to this other point that I wanted to talk about, which was like our friendship, honestly. I will say, like, you being my dad's best friend and the partner in Ainsley's Angels, and like for a while I think it was kind of like Mr. Joe, and then at some point it transitioned to essentially Uncle Joe, and like just as you kind of joined our family in that way, and like and I want you to tell the story of when we were on our way to New Jersey or New York or whatever it was.
So there's two stories there then, right? So the Uncle Joe, I'll never forget. It was Louisiana Marathon weekend, which obviously is a big one, and it was when we were debuting the Blade. And I remember like shuffling that thing around, and like we had one hotel room. That was 2015. I think you're also the guest speaker that year. We had this one hotel room for the three of us in this Blade, and which is one of our racing chairs that we use. And like, we had no idea how to, I mean, Mike D gave us the directions in the videos, but two Marines were like, yeah, we got it. But then it was one of those things like, yeah, we need to find those directions somewhere. But this all happens in the room. And then like you guys called Mom and Lori later. And naturally, I probably had a handful of beverages by that point before, going to bed. And I think you said something to her like, yeah, Mr. Joe, blah, blah. And I was like, that's it. It's Uncle Joe. And yeah, I guess that was that. And then, yeah, so that had to have been January 15, right? I'm trying to think. Anyway, and then, yeah, so if it was, fast forward, 9 months, and we went to New York, New Jersey, as Sean, Senior Vice President of Education, finished running across the country with his son, Seamus. And I don't remember why Briley and I drove up there together. I think you probably wanted to go to school or something because that's what you like to do and not what I like to do in high school. But yeah, so you and I drove up, and that was, I don't know, 10 hours. And yeah, there was not a lot of communication, right? It was like, I got to pee. I'm hungry. Otherwise, I was just like, this is fun.
5 total words in a 10-hour trip. I got to pee.
Yeah.
And I'm hungry.
I doubt I told you that I was hungry. Like that was maybe like I was speaking to you out of pure necessity only. Like I was not interested in telling you that I was hungry. Like I figured you'd get hungry, and I would just wait until that point. Yeah, I was shy as a kid, I guess, and I don't know, but it's cool to see that kind of progress to now we've gone on family vacations together. You come to Outer Banks with me and my whole family, and working together even in a professional way with doing stuff with Ainsley's Angels, and yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I mean from episode 1, of the podcast where Rooster and I talked, about our relationship over the last 14 years, your and my relationship for the last 14 years has grown as well, to include Camden and Lori and much of the Rossiter, Bear, family. So it's definitely been honored to have been welcomed into the family, and I know we feel the same about welcoming you all into our family. So it's definitely cool.
Yeah, man. Wow, what a journey, y'all. We've been at it for a while now. I've enjoyed just being part of this conversation, and if man, we might have to have Briley on again at some point. There's so much to unpack.
And I was thinking about it too, this could, easily be a 4-hour episode if we wanted it to, and some people may listen to the 4 hours, others may not. But yeah, there's so many things that, going back to the question and answer from the book reading, I've been at a handful of those myself, and yeah, I've heard everything from, how do you feel now that Ainsley's, transitioned to I remember one time, what's your favorite ice cream? That's what little kids are concerned about. And it's just, it was neat to see that. But I think that moment made me want to ask you a couple questions on camera, because I don't know if I've ever got to do that. So, and they're easy, if you would, generic, but potentially hard, because I'm asking you to try to explain or describe your favorite race and or weekend. I think I know, but I just want to. You can, if it's two, if you want to break down to two, your favorite race and then your favorite Ainsley Angels weekend, we could do that.
I'm not going to think about it for too long, because I could maybe come up with a different answer if I really did a deep dive. But the first thing that comes to my mind, Ragnar, when I did Ragnar, Tennessee. But I'm not going to answer with that, because Ragnar is not a race or a weekend. It is a experience of, you guys both have listening, they're showing their shirts and things of Ragnar. Yeah, it's so I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say probably the first ever half marathon I did, which was pushing Kendall and the Louisiana Marathon in 2017, was it, Dad?
Ish, yeah. Who's Kendall?
So Kendall Jade is first came into our lives as my dad's I Run For Buddy, which is an organization that pairs individuals with disabilities with a runner, and then the runner runs miles and sends the buddy, their race medals and that kind of stuff. It's a really cool thing. And that's how we met Kendall, like really shortly before Ainsley passed. Kendall came into our lives. And you've got to have Kendall's mom and Kendall come on an episode. So I'll save some of the story for when they're here. But, my connection with Kendall has always been really strong. And, as in a lot of ways, like, she reminds me of Ainsley. They have a similar light, a similar essence. And yeah, so I have a lot of love for Kendall and their entire family. And so like you had talked about, not knowing if you're going to run again after Ainsley passed, and I kind of was in the same boat because I'd always wanted to run a half marathon with Ainsley, but didn't get a chance to before she died. And then when I kind of met Kendall and thought about how I could push Kendall, I was like, yes. And since then, I've pushed even other riders too, Kaylee, for example. And so, but Kendall was the first, and that was kind of symbolic because I never thought I would really run a half marathon with somebody that wasn't Ainsley. And then, Kendall and I had a great time out there at the Louisiana Marathon. And then she was our first ever rider in Madison. When I started Ainsley's Angels in Madison a few months ago, she came up and ran with us here in Madison. And it was a race that I had reached out to the race director and it was our first race in Madison, and she was our first rider. So it kind of is full circle in that way too.
Yeah, that's definite full circle. I mean, that is a traveling family with a herd, for lack of better terms, right, of folks, and they're definitely awesome. I like how you mentioned Louisiana, right? I mean, we've said that a handful of times. Obviously, family roots from there, the organization, founded there. And I actually I wish I could show it, but still have that. To me, is a funny video of coming back from that race weekend, because wherever one of our connecting flights was, like, we didn't go to the jet bridge. We had to come down the ladder of the stairs, and you're just like, and your dad comes down backwards. You both are just like, what's happening here? Yeah.
No, I remember that's in Spotlight Saturday for sure. I remember you quick to pull out the camera for that.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we could stick with the one question for now. But yeah, I think Louisiana Marathon, for those listening, if you get the chance, if you haven't gone, and you get the chance to go, definitely need to go to that. January 15th, 2023, which is just crazy to say, 2023, right? And then Ragnar, that Ragnar that you mentioned, your dad and I were there on a different team. But yeah, those are both amazing events and partnerships and families that we've formed over the years. So yeah, I could not agree more about that.
Yeah. Love it, man. We are I don't even know where we're at on the time, but I'm pretty sure that we're pegging up on this thing. Yeah, and like I said, we can keep going. If you're listening to this and we wrap up and you really wanted us to keep going, we'd love to get feedback. Podcast at ainsleysangels.org. Podcast, as in singular word, at ainsleysangels.org. That's our email address for the podcast, and we'd love to get your feedback. What we do at this point, Briley, is we try to stump Uncle Joe with a question about movie quotes. Yes, and it's a fast segment. So, Joe, get ready. Here we go. Excuse me, I believe you have my stapler.
I mean, Office Space comes to mind.
Okay, all right.
Because, I mean, have you seen my stapler? Excuse me, I believe you have my stapler.
Yeah. Okay, same movie.
It's not Office Space.
It's not it. Same movie. The first rule is that we don't talk about.
Well, it's Fight Club then.
Right. So do you remember when Tyler said that? He's like, "Excuse me, I believe you got my stapler."
I don't.
Anyway, wow, man, have you seen Fight Club? You have. So that is big.
That's a win. That's a win.
You get a 0 for that one. No.
Yep.
Joe's like, no, it's not fair. This segment, man, I had great visions for this segment, and every time we do it, it's a bust in some way. And Briley thinks that I should probably remove it. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, it's It's a lighthearted way to have some fun. I don't know. I mean, I see that.
I'll send my feedback to podcast@ainsleysangels.org about
that's segment. Great plug. Let us know what you think about movie quote time. What's next, Joe? What's next for you? I mean, what's the next week or so have you?
Man, I don't know. I'm trying not to think about it because, as mentioned earlier, yeah, I got drill this upcoming weekend. Some other, work stuff. I think we have to reschedule our chat with VJ, right?
Yeah.
Put that on the books to expand our partnership with Microsoft. So that's exciting. But yeah, I mean,
did you?
What's that?
I was going to say, go back in history. I mean, did you ever imagine that like we would have weekly meetings with a senior executive at Microsoft as part of our development of Ainsley's Angels? I mean, come on.
No, yeah. If you go back to like 2014, I wouldn't think that we would be like where we are, right? I mean, still a lot of things out of the garage, right? But like, I mean, we have a fascinating website, in my opinion. Thank you, Tiny Head Designs, for that. We're partners with Google for nonprofits. We're partners with Microsoft, except two giants in the, I don't even want to say tech industry, just the world. So I never in a million years saw that in 2014 that like our platforms that we utilize for our business is Microsoft and Google.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. It's wild. Yeah. Briley, what about you? What are you thinking for, I don't know, what's next? You're the Ainsley's Angels ambassador in Madison. I mean, that's pretty intense. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's honestly, it is hard sometimes. But it's like, that's not to scare anyone away from being an ambassador, because it's also so fulfilling and probably my favorite thing that I'm doing in life right now. And I get absolutely so excited to we've got a race coming up on March 5th. That's our first official race of the season, but we've already done, we did a like kind of fun run meetup last weekend. So yeah, it's exciting stuff coming up with Ainsley's Angels. A lot of cool races, cool connections, and really excited about all of that. And if you're in the Madison area, please come join us. I don't know if anyone here is listening from Madison, but you can email madison@ainsleysangels.org, and I would absolutely love to give you more information or sign up, or it's a little plug. But yeah, other than that, I'm busy, school things. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to another week in school and being busy and pushing through that.
Outstanding. Well, as we lean forward, this new segment that we're adding today is, what is your weekly word for the week ahead? What is it? What is it, Briley? You want to go first, Joe? Who's first?
Briley.
Okay.
You're the guest. You got to go first.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna say weekly word is probably act, because I got stuff I got to do and I need to do it, and so I'm gonna act on that and think less, act more. That's kind of my motto for the whole year in general.
Joe?
I'm going to go with bowl, because I have a lot in my bowl this upcoming week with all aspects of life. So I need to make sure I can get some of those elements out of my bowl and onto other people's bowls or plate. Plus the Super Bowl is coming up.
Yeah, the Super Bowl is coming up. For those of you that are just listening to this, you know who won. We don't. That's the beauty.
Have they announced who's in it?
I'm laughing at you.
It's not an announcement, but yeah, yes.
Oh man,
Okay.
we're gonna
like
get
the cutest thing I've ever heard. Announced who's in it.
I wouldn't even know. Like, I wouldn't even have the first clue who's in it.
Dude, you know what, Joe? Bro, I'm going over here. I'm just, you know what, Briley, this has been great, but dude, I just.
Bye.
You know what? I got enough.
He's in charge.
We're done. This was good.
God, that's perfect.
Yeah, we're done here.